Para que la clase obrera y el pueblo en un proceso popular constituyente.
The election of Hugo Chavez was the beginning of a democratic revolution in Venezuela. Grassroots movements and political organizations changed the political process within the country. But while the people of Venezuela wanted change, it would not come easy. Venezuela still has to overcome many obstacles in the process, and that became very clear with the attempted coup against Hugo Chavez.
April 11, 2002. An estimated 1 million people take to the streets to protest against President Hugo Chavez, following a just recent strike led by the National Federation of Trade Unions. The moment was ripe for the opposition to take action and redirect the march towards the presidential palace, the Miraflores, where government supporters held their own rally. The strategy was clear: provoke a confrontation. A confrontation that would it quickly turned into a bloody shed. By the end of the evening, 19 people from all sides have been killed, some murdered by clear shots of already positioned snipers. The private media played an important role in the attempted coup, fabricating footage to make it seem like Chavistas were the perpetrators, while also claiming that Chavez had resigned. Both were a lie. But at this point, Chavez was flown out of a military helicopter, seemingly to his death, while the president of Venezuelan Federation of Chambers of Commerce, Pedro Carmona, was declared interim president. Carmona did not waste any time. He dissolved the National Assembly and the Supreme Court and declared the 1999 Constitution, which was created through the Constituent Assembly, as void. But without popular support, the attempted coup was just an empty shell. Especially the poor of the country, supporters of Chavez would organize and surround the Miraflores, convincing the guards to do the right thing. On the night of April 13th, just 2 days later, Carmona resigned and fled into exile. Chavez returned as the rightful president of the country. While the coup failed, it was clear that this wasn't the last attempt to sabotage the Bolivarian revolution, and that the opposition would use any opportunity given to take back power and restore order in favor of the rich.
So if anything, the failed coup only strengthened Chavez's position in Venezuela. Democracy had won at this point, but still is under constant attack. Sanctions and sabotage by the opposition makes it difficult to govern for Nicolás Maduro, while the death of Hugo Chavez has only emboldened the opposition in the country. For Maduro, it was a huge obstacle to fill in the shoes of the charismatic Chavez.
Following Chavez's physical departure in March 5, 2013, the Venezuelan opposition saw the chance to make their move. After years of tremendous progress and success achieved by El Comandante, who single-handedly returned the power to the people. But their task wouldn't become any easier, especially running against a leader who would take on Chavez's promise. El Comandante's successor, Nicolás Maduro, had long been a prominent figure in the government of the late president. With humble beginnings as a bus driver, he became a trade union leader who later moved to Cuba to receive training in politics from close allies of Fidel Castro. Maduro had to face great obstacles from the get-go. He assumed the presidency at a complex time, in the midst of general confusion, and perhaps most importantly, a steep drop in oil prices. The shadow of the charismatic Chavez loomed large, and Maduro had the unenviable task of dealing with the country's problems at the same time as regrouping his support. The first battle was the presidential elections of April 14, 2013, which Maduro easily won by a comfortable margin. However, as it was expected, the opposition rejected the results, and in an attempt to regain control no matter the cost, they called for violence, which left 11 Venezuelans dead. Not even a day had passed since Maduro was officially elected, and the right couldn't stand the faithful continuation of Chavez's legacy. Attacks and destabilization attempts from the opposition only continued from then on. With help from imperial powers, the strategy has been put in place to take down the Venezuelan government. Protests like the Guarimbas in early 2014 showed what the right wing was capable of, this time leaving 43 dead and thousands injured. The economic war also became a tool to tarnish Maduro's image, inside and outside of Venezuela, with private companies playing with people's lives, manipulating supplies, hiding food, and letting it rot in warehouses. international media companies joined forces with the opposition, fabricating evidence and straight up lying to the world. These and other factors led to chaos that turned into brutal protests in 2017. For almost 4 months, starting in April, the country was gripped by violence, which claimed the lives of over 100 people and left thousands injured. The victims were predominantly bystanders and included horrific lynchings of people perceived to be Chavistas. But sure enough, Maduro remained strong. In fact, the project started by Chavez continued and intensified, even with violence, media and economic war, and severe sanctions imposed by the Trump administration. Social programs have delivered almost 2 million houses for the people. 80% of schools are public, education is free and of high standard. Food programs have been designed to evade public speculators and reach every household. More innovative efforts were also implemented, like the creation of the Petro, a cryptocurrency meant to help circumvent sanctions and help find monetary sovereignty, which is proving to be successful.
Following the collapse of the economy due to falling oil prices and an economic war launched by the United States, violence erupted all across the country. Clashes between opposition protesters and the police seemed to become a daily occurrence, and Chavistas were hunted down in the open street. It was then when Nicolás Maduro used his constitutional powers to call for the election of a constitutional assembly with its main goal to restore peace.
Following chaos, protests, and deaths caused by the economic war and continuous attacks by international media against Venezuela, on May 1, 2017, President Maduro made the decision to call for a constituent assembly.
Hoy, 1 de mayo, anuncio que en uso de mis atribuciones presidenciales como jefe de Estado constitucionales de acuerdo al artículo 347, convoco al poder constituyente originario para que la clase obrera y el pueblo en un proceso popular constituyente convoque una asamblea nacional constituyente.
Maduro's goal is to tackle 3 main issues. 1. Overcoming the current conflict in Venezuela, including the deadlock between the presidency, the parliament, and the judiciary. 2. Restoring peace in the country. 3. Giving the people the chance to decide about the future of the country and the Bolivarian Revolution, including constitutional status to Venezuela's social missions and community councils. While criticized by mainstream media outlets and the United States government, along with its allies, the process for the Constituent Assembly continued. Potential candidates had to gather signatures from 3% of the electorate in support of their standing. The vote would be held on July 30th, with a total of 545 seats that were divided into 3 categories. 1. Territorial. 364 seats, meaning 1 representative elected for each municipality, with 2 additional representatives for each of Venezuela's 23 state capitals, and 7 for the capital city, Caracas. 2. Indigenous. 8 seats are held by representatives of the country's indigenous communities. They were not elected, but chosen by the community's own traditions. 3. Sectoral. 173 seats chosen from different sectors of society to enable them to argue for their own specific interests. These include campesinos and farmers, 8 representatives, business people, 5 representatives, the disabled, 5 representatives, students, 24 representatives, pensioners, 28 representatives, community councils, 24 representatives, workers, 79 representatives. All in a true attempt by the government to strengthen democracy and participation from every region and economic class. Over 8 million people voted in these elections. On August 4, 2017, the assembly members were officially sworn in. But it did not take long for the United States' government to sanction the newly elected members of the Constituent Assembly, while their regional allies have refused to accept the result. But the first objective with the vote was achieved, and peace was largely restored across the country, for now.